Good morning to all of you. First of all, I wish everyone a happy new year. Let's begin the new year with some academic discussions on cinema. For the official welcome address, I invite Anu George, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Maratha College.
Anu is not audible. Okay.
A very warm good morning to one and all. Wish you all a very happy, healthy, prosperous, and blessed New Year. Let me begin with the quote. All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to the second session of the webinar series on Paradigms on Literature, Reflections on Life, Culture and Life, organized by our department. On this occasion, we are extremely honored to have with us an eminent academician, Dr. Vellikkeel Raghavan, National Post Coordinator of Postgraduate MOOC in Film Studies and faculty at the Department of English, Central University of Kerala, Kasaragod. Sir, it's my proud privilege to welcome you to this webinar.
Thank you.
I take this opportunity to extend a hearty welcome to our principal, Dr. Shanti A. Avira, who has been the driving force behind organizing such a webinar. Next, I would like to extend a warm welcome to Dr. Ashwini Balachandran, Head of the Department of English, whose able guidance and support has motivated us to create such a platform for all of you. Welcome, Dr. Ashwini. We are indeed thankful to all our dear participants who are right now with us. I extend a very warm welcome to the heads of various departments, staff, and students from within the college and across the country. I need to mention that I owe everything to God. I am delighted to welcome the staff members of my department, especially the coordinators of this webinar series, Dr. Eldos Evan and Dr. Gilson George, for organizing such an enriching session. I sincerely wish that this webinar will prove to be a most productive and beneficial to all of you. Once again, I heartily welcome all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Anumis. It is indeed a happiness to introduce my research guide, Dr. Vellikkeel Raghavan, before the participants of this webinar. I got the opportunity to work under his guidance for 8 years. I did my PG dissertation, MPhil dissertation, and PhD dissertation under him. Dr. Vellikkeel Raghavan is an eminent academician in the field of theatre studies and film theory. He was awarded PhD degree in English by University of Calicut for his thesis on the political theatres of Darya IV and Safdar Hashmi. He started his career as an assistant professor in colleges of Punjab University under UPSC selection. During that period, he was bestowed with a National Award for Academic Excellence titled Guru Praveen by MHRD, Government of India. He was the author of the book Agitation Propaganda Theatre and co-author of the book English in Dalit Contest, published by Orient Black Swan. He has some 8 entries to renowned Sahitya Academy journal, Indian Literature, and also he was the founder editor of Humanities Circle, an international journal of Central University of Kerala. During 2016-18, he was a UGC postdoctoral award winner for doing research on 21st century Indian political documentary films. Currently, he is the National Course Coordinator of Postgraduate MOOC in Film Studies, offered by Ministry of Education, Government of India, and a faculty department of Department of English and Comparative Literature, Central University of Kerala. Now I invite Dr. Vellikkeel Raghavan for his lecture on third cinema. Over to you, sir.
Okay, respected principal of MA College, Shanti ma'am, respected HOD, the Department of English, Dr. Ashwati Balachandran, my dear Dr. Eldos AY, other faculty from other departments who are into this session, dear students, everyone. I wish, first of all, everyone a very happy New Year 2021. Before I begin, I just wanted to make sure that I'm able to make the presentations from here. Dr. Eldos, I'm just attempting a presentation. If it is working, just let me know. After that, we can start the lecture.
Okay, sir. Okay. Sir, the presentation screen is visible now.
Okay, is it visible?
Yes, yes.
One second. Yes, thank you. So once again, very good morning to all. Thank you for being with me in this session. And I take this opportunity to thank Dr. Eldos for giving me a chance to interact with the fraternity, faculty fraternity and student fraternity of one of the most prestigious colleges in India itself, MA College. And today's lecture is titled as Third Cinema, Rejection, Resistance, and Political Praxis of Alternative Aesthetics. With your permission, I would be talking about roughly about 1 hour. And during this talk, I will be sharing some YouTube links to the listeners of this talk. And just watch these links just for 1 minute, 2 minutes as I request you from time to time, then come back to the process. Because as being teachers, we are all experimenting with the new technology and how we can effectively utilize the new technology in delivering our academic lectures to our students. So this is my procedure. Let me start with the title itself. The title is Third Cinema, and it will definitely remind us. It will definitely remind us of another, that similar title in the Indian theatre context. That is Third Theatre, as practiced by Badal Sarkar, Utpal Dutt, Safdar Hashmi, KJ Baby, Sivik Chandran, and all these people. Okay, and when there is a third theatre, we can expect that there is a first theatre and there is a second theatre. So in that case, what could be the first theatre imagined by Indian theatre practitioners? Why do I bring theatre into discussion is that cinema is just an offshoot of the theatre, many of the theatrical practices around the world, right from the inception of cinema in official inception of cinema in 1895 in France. So, first theatre in the Indian context means the indigenous Indian folk theatre forms, including our own Kathakali, Yakshagana, and other, from other states. This is. And what could be the second theatre in the Indian context? Because if we try to connect with the movements in theatre with the movements in cinema, things would be clearer to us. Second theatre means naturalistic Western proscenium theatre. Of course, it's an import from the Western countries, especially an import from Britain. And this type of theatre was being extensively practiced in India after independence, even before independence also. And in the modern Indian drama context, we have the proscenium practitioners like Vijay Tendulkar, Mahesh Dattani, Girish Karnad, that sometimes Kavalam Narayan Panikar, and Ratan Diyam also. But Kavalam, Ratan Diyam, and Girish Karnad later on shifted to the folk forms and all. So what I'm just hinting at is that we do have some kind of hierarchization of cinema on the basis of the political ideologies. I'm just coming back to my topic, that is third cinema. See, on the basis of substantial institutional network and extensive global reach, cinema traditions of the world have been classified into three major categories: first cinema, second cinema, and third cinema. The American commercial films, especially produced in Hollywood studio system, are known as the first cinema. And the second cinema usually refers to both the commercial and art house films produced in the European continent, especially the major filmmaking nations like France, Germany, and even just except Britain. And then what do we mean by third cinema? Third cinema emerged in the Latin American countries, especially in Spanish-speaking countries like Argentina, Bolivia, Venezuela, Colombia, in the 1960s and 70s. So this period is very crucial all around the world, especially the emergence of extreme left-wing politics and its intense resistance to the capitalist models in all walks of life. That's why, as many of you know that the liberation theology also started in the Latin American countries with a very strong left lenience. So third cinema itself has got a very strong left lenience. Third cinema was originally labeled as tercer cine. I am putting a word in the chat box so that you can, I don't know whether chat box and the presentation will work together. Will that go together, Dr. Eldos?
Yes, sir.
Just even one item in the chat box, tercer cine. This was the original title used to refer to a new film movement in the Latin American countries, tercer cine, which was a Spanish equivalent for third cinema. However, after that, nowadays the phrase third cinema has been used as an umbrella term to represent major cinematic traditions apart from first cinema and second cinema around the world. So now we don't confine this particular term only to films produced from the Latin American countries, but now it includes, the fringe films from Africa, Asia, Middle East, etc. So in this sense, third cinema, the phrase third cinema nowadays goes synonymous with third world cinema. Originally, it was not like that. So now we can use the phrase along with the third world cinema. However, this talk is focused on the Latin American third cinema episode or third cinema movement of the 1960s, which had many specific historical, ideological, and aesthetic orientations as far as cinema as a cultural product was concerned. And they primarily imagined cinema not as a profit oriented industrial product for sale, but as a cultural tool in the liberation of the masses. And we know that just like in literature, there are about that a couple of dozen that dozens of movements in cinema, just like in literature. That like French Impressionism of the 19, the first decade of the 20th century, then German Expressionism of 1920s, Soviet montage again 1920s, documentary film movement 1920s. There are so many Italian neorealism of the 1940s, and the Indian parallel cinema of the 70s to 80. And we can say that Indian parallel cinema itself was inspired by this third cinema movement, which started in the Latin American countries. But many argue that Indian parallel cinema movement started with Satyajit Ray. But Satyajit Ray's influence was a little bit different. He was influenced by the Italian neorealist cinema, especially that of Vittorio De Sica's Bicycle Thief and all these things. So Indian parallel cinema basically started from the 1960s with Mani Kaul, Govind Nilani, and all these people coming together. Adur Gopalakrishnan, Girish Kasaravalli, all these people are working with the medium of cinema in a very different way from that of the commercial cinema practiced in their own languages. So we can say that third cinema was something unique. And let's look at the historical origin of third cinema as a movement which spanned across almost all Latin American countries. So the entire Latin America or South America and some part of Africa, especially the Western African countries, were also involved in the third cinema movement. So let's say that third cinema is an alternative approach to filmmaking, film aesthetics, film function, and film exhibition practices. See, third cinema as a movement includes the politics of filmmaking, film aesthetics, film function, and film exhibition practices, which was theoretically inaugurated. This particular movement was theoretically inaugurated by this movement was theoretically inaugurated by two Latin American, French-speaking filmmakers. You can see the slide by Fernando Solanas and Octavio Chetino in 1969. Okay. This is an official inauguration with their jointly written Spanish article. So third cinema was inaugurated not with a film actually, but with an article or a kind of manifesto, that is Hacia Ante Sene, toward a third cinema. The title of the article was Toward a Third Cinema. And this particular article was written by Fernando Solanas, who passed away just last month or so. Very recently, Fernando Solanas passed away. And Octavio Chetino, and it was published in the magazine Tricontinental. And Tricontinental has got a very impressive political background. Tricontinental was an organization, or was the mouthpiece of an organization called OSPAL. OSPAL is a collective, okay, of Organization of Solidarity with the people of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. And it's a left-wing socio-political organization headquartered in Havana, the capital city of Cuba. And the political objectives of OSPAL, okay, the organization, whose mouthpiece was Tricontinental, the magazine, And the political objectives of Oswald was fighting imperialism, capitalism, and globalization. See, we are in Indian context, we were talking about globalization only in the later part of 1980s and 1990s. But in Cuba, in Havana especially, they were talking about globalization and imperialism right in the middle of 1960s itself. Okay. And the theoretical proposers of third cinema, Fernando Solanas and Octavio Getino, they were also left-wing political activists and radical Argentinian filmmakers who practiced and propagated third cinema, which is also known as cinema of liberation, which is also known as cinema of liberation. And we have three, that major figures in this particular movement. I hope you can see the slide. Uh, they are Fernando Solanas, as I just mentioned. While I was preparing this slide, last or maybe a couple of months before, Fernando Solanas was alive. Okay, now we can say that Fernando Solanas, 1936, 36 and 2020. So, along with Fernando Solanas, we have Tevio Getino and Gerardo Vellikkeel. These three people co-founded a radical film movement, Grupo Cine Liberación, or the Liberation Film Group in the late 1960s. Okay. So third cinema was the title of the movement, which was later on given by the film scholars. Actually, third cinema was inaugurated by a collective of these three filmmakers, which was known as Grupo Cine Liberation, the Liberation Film Group in 1968. And we can say that the film by Gentino and Octavio, which was titled as the English title of which was The Hour of the Furnaces. The Hour of the Furnaces, 1968. This is supposed to be the first third cinema, for the first example of third cinema. I'm just inviting your attention to a small clip of this. And just watch this clip just for 1 minute, please. And after that, just close down the YouTube window and come back to the talk. I'm sharing this in your chat box. This is a YouTube link. Just click on the link and you can watch the film. And now it is 11:22 in my laptop. Just watch it for 1 minute. I'll come back to the class after 1 minute. Please watch it. If it's not possible for someone, then just leave it. Okay, well, I'm back to the talk. So all of you, please come back. I was mentioning that this film, The Hour of the Furnaces, was released in 1968. This is the directorial collaboration of uh, Solanas and Fernando Solanas and Octavio Citino. And this is considered to be a classic example of third cinema. This revolutionary activist film was made in three parts basically, and it had a total running time of 260 minutes. So that you can say that how long it is. Okay, it's about more than about 5 hours long film in 3 hours, 260 minutes. Okay, and it's a political film made largely in the documentary tradition, not in the that entertainment tradition of movie making, with lots of archive footages and long voiceover narration. And it's a political trial of the establishment of the time. And if you go on watching the film later, you can see that lots of clips of Mao Zedong, real clips, shot from somewhere else. Fidel Castro, Che Guevara are among the many revolutionary leaders featured in the film. This does not mean that these revolutionary leaders were acting in the film. No, their footages, video footages available from somewhere were used in the making of the film. So this is one idea of making a third cinema. In order to, just like a political pamphlet in the form of cinema, in the medium of cinema, in order to drive home your political points, you will be quoting, making allusion to the, that existing or extant revolutionary leaders from around the world. Actually, the phrase third cinema does not refer to a specific movement and originated in a particular country in Latin America. But as I mentioned earlier, it's an umbrella term used to refer to similar film movements. Okay. The third cinema movement had national counterparts in all Latin American countries: Argentina, Peru, Chile, Cuba, Brazil, and all these things. And of course, we can't say that everywhere third cinema looked the same, or everywhere third cinema was imagined in the similar way. No, it had its own national differences, cultural differences. But meanwhile, third cinema, as a revolutionary filmmaking, political filmmaking practice, had those three goals always in mind: the fighting imperialism, fighting capitalism, and fighting globalization. These three cornerstones were always kept intact in the third cinema movement. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, the cinema traditions of the world have been categorized into first cinema, second cinema, and third cinema, based on the location of the films, was made. But the propagators of third cinema, we can say that the joint fathers of third cinema, Fernando Solanas and Octavio Citino, had a different opinion. Okay, they refused to categorize or hierarchize their film coming under as third. They say that it's not the third something that comes after the first and second. No, they say that they have a different idea in mind while imagining a new kind of cinema. And that they say that it is radically the different from the first, second, and third cinema model suggested in the beginning of this lesson. They say that all films made in the first cinema occurred with the emergence of auteur cinema, or cinema produced or made by star directors, which placed the film director at the center as an autonomous artist who has absolute control over his cinema. We know that who are the auteur artists, auteur filmmakers or directors. Victoria De Sica was one, and the French New Wave star, that bicycle, the Breathless Godard was there. So, and Akira Kurosawa was again an auteur filmmaker, and Adur Gopal Krishnan is an auteur filmmaker. So, for Solanas and Gicino, a film which places the auteur or the star filmmaker who leaves a signature style in his film or across his films is called an auteur. And all films made by auteurs are first cinema. It is very personal, very subjective expression of a film director, and he has got absolute control over his film in every areas of filmmaking. And Solanas said that then the second cinema happened with the arrival of the new wave cinema. That means it was an alternative, that which decentered the director as the whole authority of making films. Okay, it's a kind of that decentering the director. Such films that can be called as the second cinema. But one problem is that in the second cinema tradition also, you don't fight imperialism, you don't fight the colonization, and you don't fight capitalism. This was the problem with the second cinema also, although it was a positive departure from the first cinema by decentering the director and making filmmaking a collective activity. And Fernando and Getino say that real alternatives differing from offered by the system cinemas. See, first cinemas, second cinemas are system cinemas. System cinemas are basically cinemas produced in the studio system, especially in Hollywood, Bollywood, and all major, the commercial ventures. And then what do we mean by third cinema? Okay, they say that third cinema has to do two things. First thing, they have to open a revolutionary idea towards cinema outside the system cinema. That means third cinema has to fight the established commercial films made in the studio system or in the factory system. Then third cinema is supposed to be, it has to be revolutionary, and it has to be a cinema of liberation. Second requirement of this thing, it has to be a cinema of liberation. So we can say that it has to be, that depersonalized, right? No, in the beginning of third cinema, they even refused to give the director's name, and it has to be revolutionary, and it has to resist the system cinema. These three principles are very important for third cinema. I'm just making another. Yeah, I'm going to repeat something. This is different from the first cinema, second cinema, and third cinema, referred to in the beginning of this talk. Now I'm just directly coming with the statement of these filmmakers who defined first, second, and third cinema in a different way. They say that first cinema occurred with the emergence of auteur cinema, which placed the film director at the center, or as an autonomous artist who has absolute control over his cinema. Please, I'm deliberately repeating. And the second cinema happened with the arrival of expression cinema or the new wave cinema. That the second cinema alternative signified a step towards, as it demanded that filmmaker is free to express himself in non-standard language. That is very important. Okay, non-standard means the language of cinema set by the established commercial filmmaking, the establishments or filmmaking, the studios. So second cinema emerged from such a departure, and third cinema, as I mentioned, it has to have three qualities, as I mentioned. Now let's move forward. There are some alternative terms used to refer to the third cinema movement of the the 60s. So please note down this year. That was in 1968. Actually, we had the first cinema. The first release of the third cinema. And these are the alternative terms used to refer to the third cinema: cinema of liberation, guerrilla cinema, film act, cine militante, and film pamphlet. This is just like the third theater, as I mentioned in the beginning, right? It's a theater of liberation, theater of revolution. Okay, it was a guerrilla theater as practiced by Mother Sarkar also. Okay, and it was a militant theater. So it's almost similar labels can be used to refer to the third cinema as well as the third theater movement in India. As I was mentioning, the parallel cinema of India also was inspired by the third cinema movement in the Latin American countries, especially with the wave of the socialist politics in these underdeveloped countries in Latin America at that particular point of time. And it was a part of the global communist wave, okay, which happened in 60s, 70s and all. That is actually the political background of the third cinema. Now let's look at some of the essential features of third cinema, right? And I'm just going slow a little bit because this is what I wanted to say basically in this lecture. How can we theorize third cinema by identifying some of the basic characteristics of third cinema? Please pay attention to the slide. This categorization is purely mine. This can be debatable also, and this categorization can be extended also to include some other basic features of third cinema and all. Now let's take up the first one: weaponization of cinema. The practitioners, especially the pioneers of third cinema, Solanus and Ditino, place cinema in the larger context of liberation of the masses by taking it a little bit away from the entertainment purpose to begin with. In the struggle for freedom, the direct political activism, just like direct political activism, cultural activism is also required for liberation. That liberation will not come along with political activism. It has to be given a proper backup by the cultural activism, by artists, filmmakers, and whoever is involved in whoever is involved in the so artists, including filmmakers, should take part in political revolution by weaponizing their art. Cinema has to be modified as a weapon to fight suppression. This was the philosophy of weaponization of cinema. So the cinematographic camera has to be politically reconceived as a cultural gun which can shoot 24 frames per second. You see the analogy between the original gun which can shoot and cinematographic camera was also conceived as a cultural gun which can shoot 24 frames per second, 24 visuals per second. The Cuban film, let's take a look at another example of the third cinema. The Cuban film Memories of Underdevelopment, directed by Thomas Gutierrez Elia, comes under the category of third cinema. So I'm just giving you, sharing with you the link to that film. Just watch it for 1 minute as you did last time. And after that, we can continue. Please watch the film for just 1 minute. Now it is 11:40. I'll come back at 11:41. One second, if you can.
Sir, I think this video link has been removed.
It's been removed.
Ah, yes.
Okay, then let's come back to the presentation. Okay, I'm sorry that that's not working. And I was mentioning the film Memories of Underdevelopment, directed by Thomas Gutierrez and Elia. This particular film, Memories of Underdevelopment, is about the transformation of Cuba since the Cuban Revolution of 1953. To authenticate the fictional narratives, the director has inserted many actual footages of events happened in Cuba at different times in the past. Cinema has a military function and a subversive activity to carry out in the process of liberation of the masses. So the third cinema principles urge filmmakers to restore words, dramatic actions, and images to the places where they can carry out a revolutionary role, where they will be useful, and then cinema is made a weapon in the struggle. So this is the first idea of third cinema. Second one, cinematic aesthetics of decolonization. And this is the second category. And I will one second. Yeah, I'm now going to share you another link. I hope this will work for 1 minute. And please try this link. This link is related to another third film, third cinema, released in 1969, the title of which was Blood of Condor. So let's see whether this works or not. Eldos, can you?
Yes, sir. The link is up.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I'm back to the talk. Actually, there were some guests in the department. So can we continue, Eldos?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So I was just mentioning about the second, that feature of third cinema, the cinematic aesthetics of decolonization. One of the cultural sub-consequences of European colonization is the near elimination of indigenous artistic practices and narrative stylistics. This happened across the globe. European colonization or European colonialism erased almost all indigenous artistic practices and ways of telling things. And the cultural territory of cinema was also experienced. The cultural territory of cinema also experienced European colonialism, And and European colonialism in the context of cinema articulated through the institutional structure of system cinema, especially the Hollywood kind. And what is the way out of it? If there is a dominant cultural practice imposed by the system cinema or the Hollywood cinema, in the Indian context, we can say that the Bollywood cinema, third cinema urges practitioners of cinema liberation to discover new cinematic aesthetics in the form of film narration and in the form of film idiom. That means you have to take the film in a different way. You have to, narrate the film in a different way. This includes the rejection of cinema as a consumer product intended for making profit. And George Sanjin's the film, as I shared that link, Blood of Condor depicts how the fertility of Bolivian women were controlled and destroyed by the capitalist neo-colonial medical mafia, which was promoted by the USA. The capitalistic practice of reduction of work of art as a consumer product meant solely for entertainment is resisted by cinema practitioners. So this is regarding the that evolution of a new kind of decolonial aesthetics in third cinema. Then another important feature of third cinema was the foundation of a national socialist cinema. See, we do have different cultural traditions in different nations, the politically organized communities. But what happened is that the gigantic Hollywood cinematic apparatus has standardized. Standardized means brought into a kind of, similar structure and similar, type of conceiving cinema. It has standardized the consumption, making and exhibition of films by following the 4-disc assembly line production practices. As you know that it is just an assembly line production practice, right? It was very sarcastically depicted by Charlie Chaplin in the film Modern Times. For Hollywood, the film studio is just like a heavily mechanized factory where from standardized cinematic products are churned out one after the other in order to sell. Right? In this process, it is homogenized world cinema. See, this is the problem with the Hollywood system. It has, they killed all the differences in world cinema. It has homogenized it. Third cinema, as a strategy of cultural resistance to Hollywood, advocates the cultivation of national cinematic or national specific cinema consumption, making and exhibition practices, which could contribute to the specific socialist causes in the respective nations. So system cinema's practice of universalization of cinematic artistic conceptions and styles are to be resisted by inventing and rediscovering localized marginal artistic practices, storytelling methods, and it has to establish a localized, nation-specific, people-specific organic film culture. This does not mean cultural nationalism itself, no. If we don't go with cultural nationalism, what will happen is that there will be a homogeneous, standardizing, global, cultural model. So even though we have to resist some form of regressive cultural nationalism, we have to acknowledge the existence of nation-specific or culture-specific way of doing things, especially in the field of art. This was actually advocated by third cinema. It does not mean the revival of what is not wanted in a particular culture. No, it's not that. It is just a rediscovery or a discovery of what is already existing in the culture. And moving on, I would say the next feature that we can elaborate is cinema of destruction and construction. This is what third cinema is. Third cinema has got simultaneous dual functions, that of destruction and of construction. What it has to destroy. It has to demolish the neo-colonialist image constructed by the system cinema about the colonized subject. That means how people from other than European and American racial background are depicted in the system cinema, including in the Hollywood, how racial discrimination was there, how discrimination based on the skin color was practiced in the early Hollywood films. So this has to be, that demolished by the third cinema, and it has to construct the real throbbing reality of national identity and life. It's very, very important. This is the real function. It has to show the nation specific skin color. It has to show the nation specific way of doing things, way of lives, without any kind of, no need to glorify, but it has to take or rescue such cultural expressions from demonization by the third cinema. So this is the destruction as well as the construction part of this. Argentinian filmmaker Raimundo Glaze, Mexico. I'm just showing you another. Yeah. This is a film by Mexico a Revolution, a Frozen Revolution by Raimundo Glaze. That this film documents the peasants' life during the Mexican Revolution of 1911 to 1970. The director of the film had been kidnapped by the dictatorial regime in Mexico at that time, and ever since he has been in disappearance. Of course, the reason is he has been annihilated. Let's spend 1 minute watching a clip from the film Mexico, the Frozen Revolution 1971, which was aimed at destroying the hegemonic monolithic system cinema and which was aimed at constructing a cultural specific cinematic language. I'm inviting your viewing of this particular link for 1 minute again. I've shared the link. Please spend 1 minute there. Okay, let's come back. I can see many questions coming up in the chat box. I will address, definitely I will address some of these questions at the end of this lecture. Now, exactly I've got 10 minutes to speak. After that, let's go for a short Q&A session. Let me very briefly some of the other, the features of third cinema. Right. As I mentioned earlier, third cinema was against the concept of auteur, A-U-T-E-U-R, that means the star film director, who is the monarch of the film actually. the particular film or whatever it is. So here in third cinema, they had a different idea of the film directorship, and that is the proletarianization of the auteur. Proletarianization of the auteur. Auteur or film director himself is one of the proletarians. Okay, that means he is also a worker basically. He is also a cultural worker. He's also just like the manual worker. As filmmaker, is also just a labor, a cultural labor. Within the socialist philosophical context of third cinema, the film director is just another worker or activist standing for the cause of winning the battle of liberation from the neo-colonialist cultural politics. There is no idea of auteur in third cinema praxis. So guerrilla filmmaking problematizes the film worker and breaks down the intellectual aristocracy or hierarchy, which is a bourgeois model basically. A film director is a cultural worker, a cultural proletariat, without any metaphysical or intellectual aura around him. This is what is meant by the idea of proletarianization of the art. Then, next feature is the third cinema followed as a practice, general practice, third cinema followed the erasure of symptoms of system cinema. System cinema, as I mentioned earlier, are the mainstream commercial cinema traditions, including Bollywood, Hollywood, where the studio system is very, very important, where everything on a set is created, where stars are there, where big budget is there, the large scale distribution is there, big ticketing is there, everything is there. This is what is called system cinema. So system cinema or the mainstream cinema believes in technical perfection in all departments of filmmaking, shooting, post-production, advertisement, and exhibition of films. So every department of cinema culture has been made very sophisticated, very technically perfected by the system cinema because they can afford the financial investment. This widespread obsession with technical perfection converts filmmaking and film viewing activities highly costly also. And third cinema advocates the rejection of every such ornamental elements which would mimic the financial model of system cinema. You don't have to have a very costly, that red camera to shoot. You can shoot your film even using a mobile camera or a very simple camera. You don't have to erect large, very costly, elaborate sets for shooting your film. You can do it outdoors. So in this way, you can, cut down the cost and you can make it sure that your film reaches the public, maximum public. To continue, third cinema, just like in theaters, third cinema advocated cinema spectatorship. Okay, that means if you are going to watch a third cinema, not only making a third cinema is a political activism, part of political activism, watching a third cinema is also a part of political activism. That means you go and watch the cinema and you take away the political content of the film and you work with the people, and while becoming a committed individual, you would be contributing to the society in future after watching the film. So this ensures a sort of political continuity from the filmmaker to the film to the spectator. This is very, very important in the context of third cinema. Yeah. Now I'll just going fast. 2 minutes more. Democratization of cinematic apparatus. This is very important. That cinematic apparatus, especially in the system cinema, is very costly and is very exclusive. Third cinema has no room for celebrity cinematic artists and capitalist instituted cinematic apparatus. Extreme specialization in various aspects of filmmaking is rejected by third cinema. Every cinema proletariat has to learn and practice minimum skills for making of a film. For example, any moment you will have to shift your, that function from that of a cinematographer to that of an editor, or to that of a light boy, or to that of any minor job in the filmmaking process you will have to take up. Thereby, you have to democratize the cinematic apparatus. Okay. So that called the democratization of cinematic apparatus. And we have a very good film actually. I don't know whether the first initial sequence would be an ideal one to see, but anyway, we don't have any other method. We have a very important third cinema by the Brazilian filmmaker Nelson Pereira. Okay, Nelson Pereira Santos. Yeah. Nelson Pereira Santos, the English title of it was Dry Leaves. Okay. This is often called another classic example of third cinema, especially the process of democratization of the cinematic apparatus. Many in the crew took up many different functions during the shooting and even exhibition of the film. I'm just sharing this link. As usual, please spend 1 minute. As this talk is based on cinema, at least without watching some clips, our engagement will not be complete. So I've shared it. Just take 1 minute. Okay, well, please come back. There is an interesting question in the chat box put up by Dr. Ashwati Balachandran. So can you talk about the funding of third cinema? I'm just coming to that. This particular point is related to that query by Dr. Ashwati. In third cinema, that a model of socialist financial model in filmmaking was practiced. Let's take a local example. We have a very renowned filmmaker, director from Kerala. That was John Abraham. John Abraham's film, Amma Ariyan, was made with a kind of crowdfunding. That concept was there even in the 70s. That was made in the form of crowdfunding by taking minor contributions from people. So we can say that in our culture, in Kerala cultural tradition or cinematic tradition, John Abraham's Amma Ariyan is a perfect example of third cinema, which followed a socialist financial model in filmmaking. Because third cinema rejects the notion of capitalist funding for cinema production. At the same time, it puts forward an alternative financial model where the film production collectively gets a return along with a minor surplus amount. Why this minor surplus amount? Because if you don't get that particular minor surplus amount, you can't continue with that particular, financial model of filmmaking. And guerrilla cinema still doesn't have enough experience to set down standards in the area, because regardless of whatever the situation may be, the preparation of film cannot be undertaken without a parallel of its future audience. So you have to plan to recover the financial investment also. Here, once again, the need arises of closer ties between political and artistic vanguards, since this also serves as a joint study forms of production, exhibition, and continuity. That means you have to form a network of filmmakers, network of spectators, network of political activists, network of campus film clubs, network of labor film clubs, network of factory film clubs, network of village film clubs. Then only this will be a successful model. because through these small contributions from these ordinary people will make sure that you continue with the tradition of third world filmmaking. So then again, the next category is, I'm just going to conclude, uh, two more things. You have to, that identify and establish alternative exhibition networks, because you cannot afford to release your film in big theaters which would charge very high amount. So instead you have to explore the various reading clubs, as I mentioned, university or college campuses, university campuses, and the other that the youth wing cultural platforms. All these are to be explored so that you have a kind of reliable the exhibition network. Two things are important. One, the first thing is that your film has to reach the public, the ordinary people or whom it is meant for. And secondly, you have to get a minor surplus so that you can start working on your next film. And the last point is that third cinema followed or preferred the documentary mode with a kind of narration in that. Okay, and with a kind of because when the very word documentary is used, we expect some kind of that actual life, real life, realism, or actual shot in the film. Okay, so this was a very the fast summing up of the third cinema tradition in the world, and there could be many gaps and all, and I hope you got something from this very short talk of 1 hour. Let's spend some time for Q&A. Dr. Aldos, I've done.
Okay, sir. Now I invite Edwin and Manuela to lead the Q&A section. They will read the questions for you, sir. So I invite Edwin and Manuela for that.
So there is a question in the chat box from Lissy Vincent.
Okay.
Does third cinema has propaganda as its function?
Okay. Who asked this question?
It's a question from Lissy Vincent.
Okay. Let me. Yes, I got it now. Does third cinema has propaganda as its function? Definitely. That was what I was mentioning. Just like agitation propaganda theater, which emerged in the world right from 1917 in an established form with the inauguration of Union of Soviet Socialist Republic. Okay. Third cinema definitely has a propagandist function. Its primary function itself is propaganda against cultural imperialism, political imperialism, globalization, and capitalism. Definitely, Lizzie, it is there. It is the primary function of third cinema. Yes, sir, please, actually, Dr. Ashwati has got another question here. Sir, please mention about the role of women in third cinema. Of course. Very, very less a role. That is a kind of self-criticism the third cinema propagators have to look at it. I could find only one name, but I did not mention that name because that no clip of that particular film was available. It's so gender-wise, it is a male world. You are right, Dr. Ashwati.
So there is one more question from Ashwati Balachandran. Do you think that Western notions of spectatorship and feminism are really challenged in a politically or propagandic third cinema?
This question is actually related to the first one itself. As there are less participation of women in all areas of filmmaking in the third cinema itself. Okay, there is no question of them challenging, that Western notions of feminism, because it still was not there basically. because gender was not considered to be a very primary yardstick for deciding your life as far as the third cinema practitioners were concerned. They were very much focused on class. Okay, so that is one of the reasons for them not adequately looking in the question of gender. In that case, that the modern third cinema, that European non-commercial cinema or art cinema address the question of gender.
Okay, sir. There is a question from Ganjan Chaturvedi. Why has the name guerrilla cinema been given to the third cinema?
Okay. Actually, this was a legacy of one of the one of the Soviet filmmakers, that Dizzy Gavotov. Okay. He used to go to the remote villages of Soviet Union and even in the cities, and he used to shoot people quite unaware of, okay, without their knowledge, that he would use to shoot people. He would used to shoot activities in the the town, activities in the agriculture sector and all. And that means you can go with your camera just like a guerrilla style, just like a surprise. Okay, guerrilla means that you are mounting a surprise attack. Here, instead of gun, you are mounting an attack or to capture people without their notice, sometimes surprising them in that, so that such shots could be included in the film. Not like in commercial film, what happens is that everything is choreographed. Every activity, every movement in the frame is choreographed, pre-choreographed. Okay, whom should come first? How many there should be there in the group? This group should move to the left or right, and when they move, what vehicle should come to the frame and all. And normally, commercial cinema is highly choreographed, and this is not a choreographed thing. This is catching lives, very live and unaware of. Is that okay?
Okay, sir. And next, there is a question from Sridev Mohan. Sir, there are multiple scenarists for a film in third cinema in the decentered sense.
This is by Sridev Mohan.
Yeah.
Because by scenarists, if you mean Sridev, scenarists means the professional set designers or whoever is designing the maison scene of the film. If you mean that, actually yes, it is a decentered one, because in the auteur cinema or in the system cinema, every aspect is decided by a particular person, especially the director. Third cinema need not be like that. You can collaboratively or collectively decide even the shooting, collectively decide what to come and all, even the editing also. So it is a decentered one in that particular sense. It is definitely decentered in the sense that it does not focus on a particular individual as the god of the whole cinema, the production. In that way, it is a decentered one. Exactly.
Okay, sir. There is a next question from Anumol Ausif. What about the representation of women in Malayalam film industry in accordance with Parvati Thiruvoth? And what is your
this is a very contemporary question, especially in the wake of the denial of one of the screening of one of the films where Parvati is featured. I don't think that I need to that comment on the representation of women in Malayalam film, not only in Malayalam film industry. Globally, it's a very that problematic area. But nowadays, many women filmmakers are coming up. Especially, see, we have to be first of all a director in order to give a correct representation, a female director in order to give a correct representation of women in your film. Okay, and that too is a long journey. But I think that hopefully, Malayalam film also has taken up this, the critical task of addressing this lack of representation of women in Malayalam film industry. But I have looked deeper into that. Probably my that gender bias. That I did not look into deeper into that question. I know more. Probably you can work on that.
Okay, sir. The next question is from Betsy Sebastian. The question is, can we say third cinema to be cinematic counterpart of post-colonialism?
Exactly. That's what I mentioned. Resistance against colonialism was the basic root from which third cinema sprouted, or from basic seed from which third cinema sprouted in the Latin American countries. It is against post-colonial. It is a counterpart of post-colonialism because why the Latin American countries are Spanish-speaking countries, or some of the Western African countries are, French-speaking countries. It is very obvious that that France had its colony, that Spain had its colony in Latin America. That's why they are speaking Spanish. Okay, so it is just like the empire is writing back now. They are speaking, they are making films in Spanish just to address the Spanish colonialism in their country, in their own country. Yes.
Okay. Sir, Khadija Sumaya has asked the question, how will censorship affect the future of Indian cinema?
See, censorship works in two ways actually. If you want to, screen your films in fringe film festivals, you don't have to have a censor's certificate. But if you want to show your film in the mainstream film festivals, they will demand a censor certificate. Because censoring again is a cultural question. It depends. It's not confined to a particular time and space. It depends on lots of things. If we say that in the blankets, there should not be any apps, any kind of censoring at all, then then most of the films made in Nazi Germany will have to be screened across the world. But many European nations themselves have banned many of the films made during the Hitler's Germany in the 1930s and 40s. So this is a very huge question, and some of the films made even at present are not allowed to be screened in many religiously sensitive countries and all. There are reasons. It is a very that open area. So politically, that again I am telling you, censorship is relative to the place and space, right? That's very, very important.
Okay, sir. Next, there is a question from Sini KS. Sir, you mentioned third cinema generally adopts documentary form than a commercial one. If so, does it actually serve its purpose?
Okay. See, there are commercial documentaries also. For example, Fahrenheit 9/11 by Michael Moore is a commercial documentary, a film which was released in theater also. So documentary and documentary is just one form of filmmaking, which can be made commercially also. Documentaries now, because many of the the documentaries are made for commercial purposes itself. But documentary is a mode of making films which involves lots of protocols. For example, a voice-over narration would be there, a little bit of a dominance of the actual footages will be there, and a kind of direction by the narrator to the audience, how to watch this film, and some kind of political message also will be communicated during, very explicitly communicated during the film. This is what makes actually a film a documentary. Okay, and documentary is for making people conscious of something, or maybe for advocating some political cause. And documentary has got different functions basically, or exploring a social phenomena, a social or political phenomena. So documentary, that it is just one mode of making films, right?
Okay, sir. There is a question from Ashwati Balachandran. Is censoring process involved in third cinema?
No, third cinema was actually never released in theaters. So they didn't mind censoring process. They didn't mind submitting their films to the authorities for that deciding on what to be shown or not. That's why, as I mentioned, one of the Argentinian filmmakers was kidnapped by the establishment, and he has never seen the light again. So as a practice, they did not submit their films for certification because they didn't want to show their films in mainstream theaters.
Okay, sir. Bijita Nair has raised the question: if the third cinema is documentary in nature, will it affect its reaching to common people?
No, not all third cinema was in documentary tradition, but documentary, the method was one of the, that vastly followed method in the third cinema. Okay, there were pure other sorts of cinemas also, but here again, um, why should that particular film reach to common people? Not to entertain them, especially, but to make them conscious of what is going on around them, but to make them conscious of what happened in their past and how colonialism operated in their past. And this was a kind of, the making them aware. It's a kind of, the cinematic pedagogy. We can say that, that.
Okay, sir. Sridev Mohan has also raised the question that is third cinema effective for what it aims to do?
It depends on many things. It could be effective because if you have that network, if you consistently build up a network of filmmakers, film enthusiasts, campus film clubs, village film clubs and all, it is going to be really rewarding. And it has got its own effects also. Because the film by John Abraham, American, was very effective in communicating the terror of police atrocities in Kerala, especially in the during the emergency era. Right, that's why American, because that is about the Naxalite movement in Kerala during that time.
Okay, thank you, sir. We are ending up the Q&A section.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir. It was a very interesting interaction and lecture. By this, we are coming to an end of this webinar. Now I invite Dr. Alfonso CA for giving the word of thanks.
Every new year reminds every new year reminds us to be thankful for all the good things in our life. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks and acknowledge the contribution of those who are striving hard to make the webinar series a fruitful one. On behalf of the English department, I thank Dr. Vellikkeel Raghavan for enlightening us on the political aesthetic aspects of third cinema and its influence on filmmaking strategies and projects today. I thank our principal for her guidance. Dr. Ashwati Balendran, our beloved HOD, deserves a special thanks for being enthusiastic and supportive. The coordinators of the webinar, Dr. Eldo Sevai and Dr. Jilsim George, deserves special mention for organizing this webinar on this very January 1st. I thank the technical staff for their assistance. I also want to express my gratitude to Manuela and Edwin for their support. Thank you all participants for your active participation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Eldos.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Happy New Year to all.
Thank you, sir. Wishing you the same. Okay. The feedback section is feedback form is provided in the chat box. Make use of it for getting the e-certificate for the webinar. Thank you all once again